What's up YouTube? My name's David. And today we are going to talk about the surprisingly ancient history of beatboxing. If you've been following me for a while, you've noticed that I like to talk about the voice, I like to talk about low notes and low singing techniques, and I also love talking about beatboxing. These things all kind of mesh together really well, and this video is kind of an origin story of many techniques and things that I've discussed on many of my videos. Now, when we talk about the origins of beatboxing, the formalization of beatboxing as an art form, people often attribute it to Dougie Fresh in the 1980s.
I could go like this. That's it.
Also, a lot of credit is usually given to Bobby McFerrin, rightfully so, for his very creative jazz vocal techniques in the 1970s and 1980s as well. These two artists, more specifically Dougie Fresh, really helped pioneer what we refer to today as beatboxing. The art form grew a lot from the 80s to the early 2000s. However, from the early 2000s to what we have today, we've seen an explosion in new talent, techniques, and advances in the world of beatboxing. There are so many different techniques, sounds, effects, vocalizations, whatever you want to call them, that it's really hard to keep track, and sometimes it's even hard to tell what people are doing. It seems every month somebody is coining a new name for a new vocalized technique, and this makes it seem like there are new vocal techniques being invented all the time. However, somebody who has nerded out over the voice and different vocal techniques and cultures over a long time, I have noticed a lot of things that the beatboxing world has borrowed or taken inspiration from that are, well, not new at all. They're actually very, very old. In today's video, we are going to go over the roots of some of these very popular yet very ancient techniques. The first technique that I'd like to go over that the beatboxing world has kind of taken a massive inspiration from over the past decade especially, and most notably over the past 5 years, is throat singing, or as it's known in the beatboxing community in multiple variations, throat bass. Throat singing is a vocal technique that utilizes your regular vocal folds in conjunction with your false folds being activated at the same time. They like to vibrate one octave apart from each other naturally. The combination of these two sets of folds vibrating at the same time gives this very guttural, tribal, and harsh sound, but it also gives an octavizing effect to your voice to create this lower sub-bass pitch. Some of the most famous examples of throat singing come from Mongolia. However, I find it very interesting that throat singing is something that is found in traditional Inuit cultures in northern Alaska. It is found in Old Norse cultures in northern Scandinavia. And it's also found in ancient tribal cultures in Africa. I think the fact that throat singing developed around the same time for humans spread all across the globe before they ever had contact with each other is kind of a very cool indication that this is a natural progression of music as an art form and the human voice being used as an instrument. The discovery and implementation of throat singing over the past few thousand years is definitely a result of people wanting to get more creative with their music and wanting to add more texture and depth to their sound. Today, traditional throat singing is eclipsed in popularity by its its most popular current use, which is in the beatboxing world. Throat bass is a very common and simple technique that many semi-advanced beginners stumble on and emulate in their routines. Not only is it used by beginners, but it's also used by high-level professionals as well. Now, on the subject of throat bass or throat singing, there is something that exists in the throat singing world that is quite rare. It is the second subharmonic of throat singing. If the first subharmonic is 1 octave below the fundamental pitch, the second in throat singing is 1 octave plus a fifth below. My dog is tearing up my bed in the other room. This second subharmonic of throat bass or throat singing adds a thicker dimension below the sub bass that's already there. In the beatboxing community, this is called vibration bass. Vibration bass is extremely sought after in the beatboxing world. Anytime anyone does it, the whole comment section is flooded with vibration bass because it's awesome. The subharmonic effect of stacking is very obvious with vibration bass. It sounds super thick and super meaty when you add it to your routine. Some great examples of that are the German YouTuber who is now getting into beatboxing a lot more. I really hope he drops routine soon. Tattle. Shout out to Tattle. Enel, who I just did a review on, with his self-named electric bass. Amazing. The American beatboxer that's quite famous for his inward bass also is very good at vibration bass, Inertia. And the OG from Australia, Codfish. A neat little footnote to add in: if you're a producer or you're experienced with producing or mixing or mastering, especially on something like Logic, for example, you might be familiar with a sub-bass effect on there. And the sub-bass effect on Logic, I've noticed before, there is a certain preset on there that adds an octave plus a fifth below the fundamental pitch that's on the track. And I think this is really interesting because this is exactly the effect that vibration bass has when people hear it. It's super impressive. It's super subby and loud and thick. And I think that's beautiful and really cool, because this natural harmonic vibration that our voice allows us to do is exactly what people want to hear in their 808s and their trap basses. So obviously Mother Nature intended us to be making trap beats and dubstep beats with our voices. The next technique that is even more new and fresh to the beatboxing community, that has been borrowed from traditional music that's probably thousands of years old, is the subharmonic vocal technique. This is the one that I kind of became semi-famous for on my channel over the past years in this very niche community anyways, and it's one that I have seen spring up a little bit in the beatboxing world as well. The subharmonic vocal technique utilizes only irregular vocal folds in a sort of organized vocal fry manner that sounds something like this. Well, it sounds exactly like this. After spending lots of time on a very specific Facebook page that is dedicated to the octavist voice or the basso profondo voice, I have heard and seen many discussions about old recordings of Russian Orthodox choirs where basses may or may not be using their modal voice to hit super low notes, and in some instances it's actually presumed that on these old recordings we are hearing basses nearly 100 years ago using the subharmonic technique. There have definitely been some basses that have utilized subharmonics over the past century, one including Ken Turner, and I'm not going to play either of these clips because copyright laws, but there's a very famous video on YouTube called The Rainbow of Love with Ken Turner, and he hits this ridiculously low note, like an octave below what's normally sung, which is already low. And for the longest time I thought it was inhaled singing, but judging by his bass quality and tone quality and everything on another video, this one, you can clearly hear that he is using subharmonics based off of kind of how it sounds. And after hearing a bunch of people use subharmonics over the years, I kind of have an ear for it now, I guess. As far as beatboxers, there are not many that use it yet. However, Indicator is using subharmonics for his poly sub bass or his alien bass.
I'm a brilliant. From the part of a place, I'm a brilliant. Here to procure a place, I'm a failure. Got that failure and face, I'm
Now, when I first heard it, I thought for sure it was a variation of vibration bass, except like a step below vibration bass to the third subharmonic, using his false folds. However, I recently watched Indicator's tutorial video on his sub poly bass. Go check it out. It probably won't help you do it because it's really hard. But after watching that video, I realized that he is not using his false folds at all. He is actually using the third subharmonic, which sounds like this. So I'm going to mark Indicator down as a subharmonic beatboxer, which is very cool. And if you happen to be interested in hearing another subharmonic beatboxing routine by someone that hasn't released a beatboxing routine yet, that has been secretly practicing and planning a big reveal over the past 8 months or so, then you probably should subscribe to this channel, because you know you might see something like that show up eventually. I'm just saying. The next technique on this list is one that the beatboxing community has really used to bring the bass in the most aggressive, grimy, awesome way possible. This technique is referred to many things: inhale singing, inward bass, inhaled bass, aggressive phonation, whatever you want to call it. Phonating while breathing in instead of breathing out. Now, for those of you that are already familiar with the use of this technique in the beatboxing world, you know that it is bass heavy. It is used for super heavy bass stuff for the most part. Outside the beatboxing community, I haven't really found it being used as a bass technique with lower pitches. However, inhaled speaking is part of everyday language in most Scandinavian countries. Specifically, most affirmations like yes or okay or are inhaled like this in Swedish and Icelandic languages.
On their shell.
Wow.
Oh.
Here in Umeå, we say
And that means yes.
Now, I know you might think this is quite a lot higher than how beatboxers use it, so David, you're reaching pretty far. But you can use the same mechanics to achieve that inhaled yep as you can to achieve, well, something like Helium or Inertia or Vocodah would do. Yep, 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 yep. Here's some better examples from Inertia, Helium, and Vocodah.
Horn a real rhythm goes like
Lastly, ironically, in the order that most new beatboxers learn these techniques, we have the basics, the boots and cat. Most of these techniques, like the kick, snare, hi-hats, inward K snare, things like that, they just seem pretty obvious and innate in nature to us. However, they also have roots in ancient languages that can be traced back thousands of years. In Africa, the Kosan or San people still speak these languages today. There are hundreds of thousands of people that use the click languages every day. Here's an example of that language being used. Major parallels can be drawn between the click languages of Africa and the beatboxing world today, and arguably this is the most relatable because anyone that knows the basics of beatboxing can easily see that these people with their click languages laid the foundation for the fundamentals of beatboxing thousands of years ago. Whether or not directly related or purely coincidental by human nature, it's undeniable to note that the human voice is a vessel for communication and expression. Whether you're speaking a language to communicate with your people, or you're putting down a beatbox routine to wow and amaze thousands or millions of people. The human voice is quite a versatile instrument that has been innovated countless times over the past 1,000 years, and I truly believe we have more discoveries about it to make yet. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel, because I am putting lots more content out like this all the time. The more support I see in my channel, the more time I can allocate to these videos, and the more high quality content I can put out for you guys to enjoy. I love making these videos, and every time I make a new one, I end up learning more things about the human voice or sound or things in general. So I really appreciate all the support this far. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, and yeah, let me know in the comments below what else you want to see. So thanks for watching, and until next time.